morning. Yes, I have to agree. It's also the first time that I see the amount of people in the room, and it's lovely to be here. What an absolute honor to be at this conference, and what a joy to be in your beautiful country. The land of our struggling Proteas, our cricket team's nemesis. But to be fair, I am more of a rugby girl than a cricket one, and at least there for the moment we still have one up on you. But arriving in New Delhi yesterday, it struck me that your country, with its scale and diverse audiences and culture, seems like heaven for any media maker. And I'm seriously envious of you. But as we've heard this morning, we all sit with challenges in terms of the changes within our media landscapes. My name is Minette Ferreira, as I've been introduced, and I live in Cape Town in South Africa, and I've been working in the media industry for the past 25 years. I'm the general manager of the lifestyle and local newspapers at South Africa's biggest publisher, Minette 24. Lifestyle was called our magazine business some years ago, and magazines and newspapers in our company also did not mix, but our media world has changed quite dramatically on many fronts. So who are we? Let me give you a little bit of context in terms of Minette 24. As I've said, we are South Africa's biggest publisher with 4 digital subscription platforms, paid-for platforms, more than 35 newspapers, and more than 12 magazines with substantial amounts of brand extensions. We publish over 150 magazines, different brands per year. And the company has a diversified portfolio. We also have a books business, we have a distribution business, we have an e-commerce logistics business, as well as TV operations within our stable. And it was started in 1915 as part of the bigger Naspers or Process Group, and in fact it was the birth company of Naspers. Within our magazine business, our magazines reach a combined audience of 11.5 million, about a quarter of South Africa's population. This is print and digital combined. Our oldest magazine of 103 years is an agricultural title, and our youngest platform, called SNL24.com, is 5 months old and houses 2 of our magazine platforms along with some of our newspaper brands. So a first also in terms of mixing our lifestyle as well as our newspaper brands.
Lifestyle is the leading role player in the South African magazine industry. We publish 77% of the magazines sold nationally at magazine stands, and 7 of our brands are among the top 10. Our interests extend to multiple platforms, including digital media, television, video, eventing, and e-commerce, as well as other diversification. We use the power of 360-degree brands and our culture of entrepreneurship to create experiences that can be accessed anytime, anywhere. Our lifestyle content includes education, travel, food, fashion, agriculture, health and wellness, home and decor, and DIY.
But yes, times are definitely changing. No one is unaffected by change. But what exactly inspired us to reinvent our magazine publishing business dramatically over the past 2 years? 4 major issues drove us to reinvention. It's been very evident over the past decade that print products, our revenue have shifted. The rise of digital has impacted print sales and also reduced advertising spend. In South Africa, local publishers only get 3% of all digital spend, and extreme cost hikes of paper and fuel has been a major hurdle for us to overcome. And yes, COVID. It absolutely propelled us into a new way of thinking. In South Africa, and during the lockdowns, they even prohibited the sales of our magazines and newspapers for a period. And it really hurt both our circulation and advertising. Advertiser strategies in particular changed overnight, as well as our consumer habits. And our teams started to work from home, and most of them are still working from home in certain operations. Thirdly, disinformation of news, or what I like to call bad news, From conspiracy theories to bots, disinformation's rise over the past few years have highlighted the importance of trustworthy content. And it doesn't matter if you're a national newspaper or a soapy magazine. It's the media's job to absolutely ensure that the communities that we connect can absolutely trust us implicitly. I believe this has placed professional content makers and trustworthy brands back into the pound seat. And lastly, content. Of course, we've lived the mantra that content is king. However, our revenue has traditionally been an equal combination of advertising and circulation income. That has shifted quite dramatically in South Africa, with advertisers increasingly focusing on digital reach. Relevant content has become the key revenue driver of our business operations. So we had to answer two questions. How do we keep engaging our communities best? How do we optimize the one thing that we have control over? Our strategy had to focus on content. It was clear. Content remains king, and we had to pivot our operations to make the content and our content makers the top priority, because that is what creates communities. So we had 3 rules. Our makers must have the content say. If they don't have the say, their passion and plans dwindle. Their autonomy is absolutely key. However, autonomy can only be respected if there is sufficient communication between publishers and the creative teams. And lastly, to keep supporting them, collaboration measures had to be significant and firmly in place. So what did we do? We created the outsourced content provider model 2 years ago for 6 of our magazine titles. Essentially, we outsourced the content creation of these brands to an outside content provider, meaning the previous editors were offered a contract to establish their own content businesses and deliver content that we require. But why these titles? Our criteria was simple. Firstly, frequency. With our weekly and more newsy titles, the model fails to be supportive to the content teams as operations and teams are too vast. Secondly, we looked at the current editors within each title. Could they cope with the autonomy and essentially have the resilience to establish their own businesses? So how does the structure look? The role of the publisher, and this is really critical in terms of unpacking what we need to do as a business. We remain the owners of the titles, and we ensure that the magazine is printed, distributed, and we adhere to our corporate regulations. The IP rests with us, and we also maintain control of the profit and loss. All advertising sales, sponsorships, and commercial enterprises and implementation rests with Media24. So the role of the OCP, or the outsourced content provider. Basically, the ex-magazine editors now play the role of these content producers. They supply content for their multimedia brands on an outsourced contract basis. How they create the content and the people that they work with is entirely up to them. Very similar to a publishing contract agreement. And in essence, we've empowered the editors to launch their own content businesses. Just because they aren't employees any longer doesn't mean that they don't own the heart of our business. They remain our brand custodians and inspirators. They own the content. With COVID adding the need for employees to operate more freely, at their own pace and pleasure, they really have the freedom to live their best content lives and to structure their own payment and how they work with others. Legacy magazine structures were changed to optimize the editor's role and therefore the content. We pay the outsourced content provider a fee to supply completed magazine material and other auxiliary content related to the brand, including brand extension magazines, diverse projects such as events, so literally content that they would create for us for an event, digital content, or presentations for commercial pitches, or content for commercial campaigns. Outsourced content providers are incentivized with a percentage share in the profit of the brand itself, with diverse projects having an additional financial reward. So the editor's creative abilities and efforts to expand the brands and revenues is also to their advantage. We believe that this has been a major game changer for us. And in terms of our approach to the model, this is really pivotal. They are vested in the success of the business. Our success is their success. And also, access. Our OCPs have access to our commercial branded content studio, our meeting rooms, our distribution channels, our sales team, and of course our publishing expertise. So back to our 3 rules that I said right at the beginning. The big check for us. Was the system adhering to our own rules that we laid down? So rule 1, have we established creative autonomy for OCPs within the system? We gave the editors freedom to execute the content to their own creative standards. They can now define their own roles and maximize their strengths. Editors run their own businesses, and they can add freelance work to their slate. The OCP model gave them the option to work from home, but with support from the business, and it gave them total flexibility as to who they employ. While our editors have always been treated with great respect, they reported into the publishers. The boss-employee narrative and relationships have shifted to that of business partner. Not only does this give us more time to do what we do best, it also aligns better with our views that magazine brands can survive digital migration and still remain profitable, as we have invested partners rather than employees. And the OCP model embodies the understanding that no one understands the community better than the people that connect with them via content, and we respect that. Also, we have cut corporate costs to invest more back into content and to save on the bottom line. This is both the OCPs and the business benefit. Rule number 2, are there sufficient communication checks in place for both partners? Yes, we love our editors. In fact, I miss seeing them on the floor. However, we do connect very often, business-wise and socially. And besides formal sessions, the editors have access to the whole publishing team as they wish. Besides regular communication on all aspects of the business, a fair contract is the guide of this partnership. The contract was also established with input from the editors. It really was a collaborative process. It deals with remuneration, the assets required, support granted, incentive structures, as well as partnership conclusion. Also, it was key to appoint people who are adaptable to these roles, as it was a major advantage that they know us and our systems well. We are working with editors we know and trust, and they are also familiar with the Media24 lifestyle culture. It has also given our own publishing teams the opportunity to focus. So both the publishing business and the OCPs are leaner and meaner. Rule number 3, are there sufficient collaboration measures in place for both partners? Yes, content is at the heart of what we do. Before the business team comes up with any commercial or diverse revenue strategies, we brainstorm with the editors, and in fact, vice versa. The editors come up with commercial incentives and ideas. This is absolutely to everyone's advantage, creatively as well as financially. We are truly partners that have space and time for one another. The creative initiatives the business drives secures revenue that also benefits the OCPs. We are a business after all. Advertisers love engaging with the editors, so we set up regular trend sessions and lunches. We are a united front to our key stakeholders. And it's not fake. The OCP model has in fact empowered our editors to have a much bigger voice. These collaborative measures ensure that content really remains at the core of everything that we do. The editors are our partners. Also, being more flexible in terms of our output means our cost structure is variable. The business grows or declines according to the market's need. Although we still make more profit of our print products, we have positioned our brands as digital first, serving additional content and traditional print content online either before or on publication days, has moved us absolutely forward. In magazines, paywall readership now makes up nearly a third of our overall readership. We cluster most of our magazine brands within some of Media24's digital paywalls, Netwerk 24 as well as News 24. And we've also launched a standalone paywall for our Afrikaans agricultural magazine, Landbou Weekblad, which we launched in October of 2021. This provides a comprehensive ecosystem for agricultural content on the web. And most recently, we've launched SNL 24, as I've referenced earlier, where 2 of our magazines are also included. Also, printed magazines have become a luxury item. It's a special purchase, and our markets are high-end. So we increased cover prices, and we also changed magazine frequencies, ensuring our products are longer on shelf, meaning sales per issue increased. This also gave us the opportunity to launch more brand extension magazines, adding to our bottom line. Also, if we spot a trend, it doesn't really fit with one of our main brands, we commission one of the OCPs to produce a brand agnostic product for us. So more work flows to the OCP. What has the results delivered? We've seen a reduction of 20% in our editorial costs. Our overheads have reduced, and from a corporate cost perspective, we're 40%, and we've seen an increase in our retail circulation sales of 20%. We own 70% of the market share in print and 65% in terms of digital, and 7 of our brands are on the top 10 in terms of the consumer category. The OCP model has really allowed us to maintain sustainable brands through our trusted print business. Simultaneously, we build our digital subscription future and diversify in new revenue streams. Was it as easy as it sounds? Well, I guess kind of, but I don't think anyone should underestimate the level of consultation, as well as making sure that the legalities are checked and a rock-solid contract, and make sure that your partners are resilient. I know I'm out of time, so I'm just going to quickly run through these last couple of slides, and I'd like to just use one case study, excuse me, using one of our brands, Home. I'd like to illustrate how we go about placing content and the communities that we serve really at the heart of our business. Home is a decor magazine aimed at home renovation and interior design enthusiasts. Our brand world starts with the printed magazine, but from there the OCP have the opportunity to explore other content projects around their communities. For instance, on Home, we host events such as decor schools or masterclasses. This garners sponsorships from advertisers, and our readers pay to attend events. This year, for instance, we are planning a renovation summit. We've also developed paid-for online masterclasses for hobbyists, so creating communities within communities. So, for instance, painting furniture or learning how to knit. And all the content is again provided by the OCP and served on different platforms. And so the world of content and our communities grow around the brand. Home produces, for instance, several special printed editions around special interests, such as food or gardening. So really, it ticks all our boxes in terms of creative autonomy, our communication checks, as well as having collaboration structures. I'm going to skip over, or let me quickly run through our Fair Lady case study. This is from our women's interest stable. It's a glossy aimed at an older readership of females. And we unpack our communities and interest group in a very similar way. And here we've unlocked opportunities with special diets aimed at an older readership. And most recently, we've launched a vertical through Fair Lady focused on menopause called HOT. As a topic, this provides us with endless opportunities in terms of, and on multiple platforms. We have a printed magazine, and we've now also branched into a paid-for digital diet plan that's tailored specifically around eating when you're, when you're in your menopause, and we will be hosting paid-for events called Hot Nights Out. Again, checking all the boxes. Lastly, I'm going to play you a short video that just gives the final word in terms of this experience in reinventing our business model, what our OCPs says about the process.
There are many upsides to the so-called outsourced content provider model that we follow, and this we've seen over the past 2 years since this really innovative new way of working was introduced on the brand I Edit, Thuis Home, South Africa's #1 home and gardening magazine. The most significant one is the noticeable impact on the bottom line of the brand. Fixed costs are greatly reduced. As freelancers, the team sees a direct benefit too. Now, they can invoice for every piece of work they deliver, whereas before, whilst they were salaried, well, sometimes the work was just piled on. Now, if there's a special project, team members get directly remunerated for the work they do, and they can even choose to not work on certain projects. It's a democratizing model, putting more power in the hands of the team, but also more responsibility and ownership. Navigating this new OCP arrangement relies on a relationship of trust between the OCP, in this case myself, and the company, in this case Media24. And it does require regular check-ins and a clear understanding of what the expectations are from both parties. It really is, first and foremost, a partnership.
Hi, I'm Pierre Steyn, Editor-in-Chief of Wag & Go, the biggest travel media brand in South Africa. So, what's really good about the outsourced content model? The fact that I'm still the Editor-in-Chief of Wag & Go, 2 years after being kicked out of the corporate nest. Seriously though, this was a soft landing, both for editors and editorial teams that were retrenched but can still work as freelancers. We continue to work on brands that we love. We have the support of a big corporate that enables us to create beautiful, authentic and useful journalism, while Media24 carries the risk of profit and loss, of advertising sales and negotiating printing and distribution. And it also gives me the opportunity to gain experience as an entrepreneur. But the last 2 years proved that carefully curated quality journalism, set in beautifully designed publications, is not only valued by its readers, but it can be profitable. And good journalism begets good journalism, to the extent that the best freelance writers now want their work published in Wag & Go. So if we're adaptable and nimble enough to evolve this OCP model, and I do believe we are, the future remains bright.
Hello, I'm Susie Brokenshaw. So when we started the new model, as freelancers, everyone was free to take on other work as well, which calmed their anxiety and stimulated their creativity. I was free to hire the best people for the job. What works for me is being entirely in control of my own budgets. I love the independence. I have the support of Media24, but I can make quick editorial decisions when I need to. I personally prefer the flatter hierarchical structure that comes with working with freelancers. I like not having to deal with the constant admin of a huge company. I have also learned that I have to be extremely clear about the boundaries of my role as OCP and not to let it leach into other areas. It requires a high level of trust between publisher and OCP and regular communication between the two to make it work. The best decisions I personally made for my business were to permanently employ only 2 people, and both of them in administrative roles. So a production editor to manage the flow of copy and deadlines, a business editor to liaise between sales and editorial. I employ all the creatives on a freelance basis. I want to be 100% free to work with the right people, and this has worked well for me. I know that there are other OCPs who've successfully done exactly the opposite, so I think it depends on temperament. I rolled 6 standalones into the primary publication. It was more manageable for me in terms of time, and the readers perceived it as massive additional editorial value, so our circulation went up and has stayed there. Also, with the reluctance of retailers to give space to new publications, it was a better strategy for us in the end. Overall, I love this arrangement, and I believe the brand has benefited from the fresh and energized input of motivated and specialist freelancers. It is a viable model, it's an excellent alternative to the current system, and it's a no-brainer if the alternative is to close the publication down.
And with that, thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity.